Hi, I'm Anne. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be trying a new video and one that I've been thinking of doing for a while. Hopefully you guys like it too, because this video took me literally hours to make. On my channel, I've never hidden the fact that I absolutely love classic stories, whether it's Fyodor Dostoevsky or Jane Austen. With that comes a love of old myths and fairy tales. A year or so ago on my channel, I posted a video where I reviewed 7 Beauty and the Beast retellings. But besides loving to read fairy tale and classic retellings, I love and sometimes hate watching movie adaptations of my favorite tales. So today I'm going to be ranking 26 Beauty and the Beast adaptations. Yeah, I was surprised at how many adaptations there were for Beauty and the Beast, especially when I realized I had watched most of them. In making this video, I only had to watch 7 adaptations, which means I had already watched 19. A couple quick disclaimers before we get into the video. This is definitely a subjective list based on my own personal opinions. You may completely disagree with me, and that is fine. But the rule is, if you do disagree with me, you have to put down in the comments why you disagree with me. Also, I did try to include all the Beauty and the Beast adaptations I could find, but I'm sure I missed some or chose not to feature any single episodes of bigger TV series. Also, there will be spoilers for all the movies mentioned on this list. Before we get into this list, I'm going to give a brief summary of this fairy tale, even though I'm pretty sure most people know at least the general story of Beauty and the Beast. Originally, the fairy tale was written in French by Gabriel Suzambo de Villeneuve. I'll put the name on the screen because I can't pronounce anything. In 1740. It tells the tale of a prince cursed as a beast and a beautiful maiden who saves him through her love. Beauty is one of 12 children. Yes, in the original, her dad had 6 sons and 6 daughters, whose merchant father loses all his wealth after his ships are lost at sea. When he hears that one of his ships has come into port, he plans to travel to collect anything on the ship and asks his children what presents they want. Most ask for fine clothes or jewelry, but Belle, which means beauty in French, merely asks for a single rose. The father goes to port, discovers his ship is empty, and heads home empty-handed. He gets caught in a storm and stumbles into a mysterious castle where he finds magic food and drink at a table and finally falls asleep in a fancy bedroom. The next morning, he is leaving the castle. He sees a rose bush and remembers Belle's request. However, when he pulls off the rose, the beast appears, furious for the merchant stealing his most prized possession. The beast wishes to kill the merchant, but says he will only let Belle's father live if he will convince Belle to come live with the beast. I assume you can guess what happens next. Her father returns home and Belle insists on going to live with the beast. The beast gives her everything she could want, like fancy clothes and food, and asks her every night if she will marry him. Of course, she says no, because he's a weirdo. And at night, Belle dreams of a beautiful prince. Eventually, Belle grows to care for him, and the beast gives her a ring which can magically transport her back home. She goes back home with so many beautiful clothes and jewels, which of course her sisters are thrilled about. They convince her to stay longer than she promised the beast to stay, and then she has dreams of the beast dying. So she returns to the beast's castle to discover he is, in fact, dying. She proclaims her love. He turns into a prince, and they live happily ever after. Note in the original that there is no Gaston character, and the beast wasn't turned into a beast because of his pride, but instead he was turned into a beast because he refused to be seduced by this evil fairy who wanted to seduce him. So yeah, a bit different than the Disney movie. But definitely not as dark as other original fairy tales, like Cinderella. That shit is dark. Now that that is out of the way, let's get to the rankings and tell me at the end of this video how many of these have you seen. Number 26, Meridian. This is an American film released in 1990, and there's good reason this is at the bottom of my list, because I would have had to have been on drugs to watch this and find anything good about it. It follows these 2 young women, Catherine and Gina, who go to Italy following Catherine's father's death to visit her family castle. There's this carnival, 2 twin brothers who turn into werewolves, and a pretty horrific scene where the girls are drugged and assaulted by the said twins. Do I need to say more? The movie is only loosely based on Beauty and the Beast, since the 2 brothers are cursed to become monsters, and the beauty, aka Catherine, ends up saving one of them. but I honestly couldn't stand this movie. Putting aside the problematic scenes and the really awkward romance, the movie just never captured my attention and has very little to do with Beauty and the Beast. However, if you're curious to see a really good analysis on it, Good Bad Flicks did a great video on it here on YouTube, which I highly recommend. Number 25, The Beautiful Beast. This is a 2013 American film, which may be even more loosely based on Beauty and the Beast than the last entry. It follows Isabel, this wealthy but spoiled girl who is walking and gets injured and picks up by Jeremy, this guy just minding his business and living in the woods. The only tie to Beauty and the Beast is the idea that even though Isabel is beautiful, she is a beast in her behavior. But besides that, this movie is just your average Hallmark type enemies to lovers movie. And I honestly don't see this much as an actual adaptation. Number 24, Beauty and the Beast. This is an American TV show running for 3 seasons from 1987 to 1990. It follows female attorney Catherine living in New York City who befriends Vincent, a beast who lives in the sewers. I didn't watch this entire show because the first episode didn't grab me, but it starts with Catherine being attacked and left for dead and rescued by Vincent. It's part romance, part crime series, but what I can't forgive, and major spoilers for this, is that Catherine dies in the 3rd season and is replaced by this random new lead that is investigating her death. So no wonder the series was canceled after that season. It's like after they killed Marion in the BBC Robin Hood. I'm still salty about that. Honestly, this series has very little semblance to the original Fairytale, but I do love the beast design, Vincent's beast design in this show. Number 25, Beauty and the Beast. This movie is an animated American film released in 1992, and honestly the only reason this exists is because of the popularity of the 1991 Disney version. This definitely looks off to me, and I just want to know how they got Christopher Lee to voice Belle's father. Saying that, it's not a bad movie in of itself, but the art isn't really impressive, and everything this movie does is worse than the Disney animated movie. Number 22, Belle and the Beast. Also called Beauty and the Beast, A Latter-day Tale, this is a 2007 Christian modernized adaptation of Beauty and the Beast. And let me say, however much I love the look of Belle in this movie, played by the gorgeous summer Naomi Smart, nothing could save this movie from the atrocious acting of the Beast character, named Eric Landry in this one. So the movie follows Belle Watson, whose father accidentally breaks a vase in Eric Landry's mansion. Landry is an arrogant businessman nobody likes, and Belle agrees to work for him to pay off her father's debt. Oh, and did I mention she's super Christian? I didn't hate the Christian messaging in here, as it's pretty tame, and I enjoyed Belle's character, but Matthew Rhys, who plays Landry, is so bad in this film. Still, this film captures the essence of the original, even if the beast isn't physically a beast, saying that beauty comes from within, and there's even this hilarious Gaston-type character who's trying to date Belle. Number 21, Spike. Interested in seeing Beauty and the Beast combined with a camper slasher? Well, look no further than this 2008 film where 4 friends, including the beautiful The Girl, yeah, that's her name, find themselves stalked in a forest by a horrifying beast. I love how the makeup team just went all in with Spike, who is the resident beast in this one. It's much more of a surrealist film, and I liked how dark it was willing to go with the original subject matter. Spike is just a lonely boy, and unlike in the original, he's just stuck as a beast and there is no curse. He is obsessed with the girl since she was a child, and it's kind of sad to think of him living in the forest away from everyone, just simply watching society, never being able to live with humans because of his spikes. Saying that, the acting in this film is super stilted, and the film is just a bit weird. Number 20, Beauty and the Beast. This is an Australian film from 2009 and feels like one of those B fantasy movies on the Sci-Fi Channel. There are these horrific murders going on in this medieval kingdom, which are blamed on the beast. But when our Belle, who is just this village girl, finds out he is innocent, they set out together to discover the truth. And of course, in the end, it is revealed that the beast is a cursed prince who was cursed because this powerful guy and this witch wanted his kingdom. The acting is definitely subpar. The graphics are really bad. I'm not sure if I appreciate the focus of Belle's costume being on her chest. But this movie is still pretty fun to watch. Number 19, Beauty. This 1998 American film follows painter Alex Miller, who takes her father's job when he falls ill. The job is to paint recluse author Lee Crompton, who is disfigured by this disease called acromegaly, which is basically an excess growth hormone where certain appendages, such as the hands and feet and sometimes facial structures, grow abnormally large. Of course, they fall in love. I appreciate how this version of Beauty and the Beast is real, and Crompton doesn't miraculously turn into a prince at the end. It is Alex's eventual love for him which makes him realize his beauty despite his disease, especially when he sees how beautiful he looks in her painting. However, for me, the movie feels really slow and not that interesting. Great message, but not so great movie. Number 18, Blood of Beasts. What happens when you combine Vikings and Beauty and the Beast? Well, wonder no further, because Beauty and the Beast, also known as Blood of Beasts, is here, released in 2005. This follows a Viking princess whose ill father travels to an island supposedly cursed by Odin, where a beast is said to live. She goes to rescue him and discovers a beast there. Like in the 1987 Beauty and the Beast series, Freya, our beauty, does die in the end, saving the beast, whose name is Agnar. She sacrifices herself to break the curse. So kinda sad. I enjoyed this video. Yes, it's still a B movie, but it's really enjoyable and it takes an interesting, more warlike look at the original Beauty and the Beast. It also stars Jane March, who I love from Tarzan and the Lost City. Just me? Yeah, probably. Number 17, Beauty and the Beast. Now we go to the first adaptation of Beauty and the Beast in English, released in 1962. It's honestly more of a werewolf story where Lady Althea comes to marry Duke Eduardo only to discover that he turns into a beast every night. It's a very stylized movie, typical of the 50s and 60s historical movies, where they are more a mix of the 50s and 60s styles and less of any specific historical period. But I do appreciate that it is a unique twist on Beauty and the Beast, where the beast is not bad at all, and Althea still agrees to marry him even if she's rather uncomfortable about her husband being a literal beast at night. There's also this drama where this Prince Bruno, we don't talk about Bruno, no, where Bruno wants to discredit Eduardo by proving he is a beast so Bruno can be heir to the kingdom instead of Eduardo. So for the most part, this movie isn't an exceptional adaptation of Beauty and the Beast, but I do appreciate how it brought the fairy tale to an English audience. Number 16, Beauty and the Beast. This is an Italian 2014 miniseries, sitting at about 3 hours total over 2 episodes. Prince Leon, the beast of the show, gives major Phantom of the Opera vibes as his scars are hidden behind a mask he wears. Belle's father owes Leon money and Belle starts working for him to repay it. There's a lot of interesting things in this miniseries, such as a second female love interest being the villain instead of a male Gaston type. There's also an added depth as Belle tries to help Leon treat his people better, who are super poor and struggling. The villainess's father is also this scientist living in Leon's house and is super awesome. However, Leon is super angsty and kind of douchey through most of the show, and just by the end, it miraculously works out even though he's still kind of a douche. And Belle's character is a bit bland. However, I love the costumes, especially Belle's dress she wears, which looks very similar to the animated Disney Belle's outfit. Number 15, The Scarlet Flower. This is a 1952 animated movie based on the 19th century Russian fairy tale, which in turn was based on Beauty and the Beast. Made in Soviet Russia, it was clear that the movie is meant to uplift Russia and its culture, considering it was released 1 year before Stalin died, while there were really firm censorship laws in place concerning filmmaking. Still, the film is incredibly beautiful with gorgeous Russian architecture. Nastenka, the Belle of this movie, has the most gorgeous costumes. It also sticks closely to the original fairy tale, and I enjoyed seeing the originally French fairy tale from a Russian perspective. Number 14, Beauty and the Beast. This is a 1987 musical film which is part of the canon movie Tales, of which there are a total of 9 fairy tale adaptations in the series. Surprisingly, this film was filmed entirely in Israel. Would not have guessed that. It sticks with the pretty typical Beauty and the Beast plot, only giving the main characters names Beauty and Beast. However, the main highlights of this movie are the musical numbers, of which there are many. Some are actually catchy songs. It's a pity that none of the actors can actually sing. But you know what? When I was a kid, I didn't care if people were a little bit tone deaf, because I love this show. It also has many common elements of the original fairy tale, which are ignored in many of the adaptations, such as Beauty dreaming of the prince and the Beast asking her to marry him every night. It's also filmed in this almost dreamlike quality. So yeah, horrible singing, but good movie. Number 13, Beauty and the Beast. Produced by Hallmark Movies, this is a 1976 TV movie starring the real-life couple George C. Scott and Trish Van Devere. When I say Scott is a big actor, I'm not over-exaggerating. He acted from the 50s until his death in the 90s. He also had 5 wives, of which Trish was the last. This sticks pretty close to the original, and if you're looking for a super basic adaptation with no extras, this is a good one. Saying that, I know the leads were married, but Scott is about 14 years older than his wife, and he looks even older than that, which makes him look really old as the prince. He honestly looks better as the strong beast boar man. Number 12, and forgive my pronunciation, Die Schön und das Biest. This is a 2012 German film. This one feels very historical, and I love how simplistic it is. And I also think both the prince and Elsa, the beauty, are perfectly cast. I really enjoyed the chemistry between the 2 main leads, as it feels surprisingly like the dynamic of the Disney animated Beast and Belle. It also has quite a bit of humor from the others living in the castle. Yes, the budget is pretty low, and I won't say it does anything unique, but it's a fun watch. Number 11, Beauty and the Beast. This CW series is loosely based on the 1987 series that we talked about previously on this list. It went 4 seasons from 2012 to 2016 before it was canceled. I actually watched the entire first season as it was coming out, and I quite enjoyed it. However, I didn't continue watching the series. It follows Katherine Chandler, an NYPD detective whose mother was killed in front of her, and she herself was saved by a mysterious man 9 years before the series starts. Investigating her mother's case in the present, she is brought to Vincent Keller, an ex-soldier who was deeply scarred both physically and psychologically. He's also got superpowers. He's now a recluse living away from humanity. The series follows them as they solve different cases while falling in love. It's got some silly CW cliches, like constantly showing Vincent's six-pack and having a lot of teen cliche moments, even though all these characters are supposed to be in their 20s or 30s. But I did quite enjoy the first season. It has very little relation to the original Beauty and the Beast fairy tale, especially since Vincent has very minor scars, which is really nothing compared to being a literal beast. In fact, isn't there a stereotype that women find men with scars attractive? With that, we reach the top 10. Number 10, No Such Thing. This is a 2001 dark comedy? Supernatural drama? Modern tragedy? Honestly, I don't know what I watched, but it was quite interesting. And it stars Helen Mirren, who definitely stole the show. Set in the modern world, this movie follows Beatrice, who works for a television network. Her fiancé goes missing hunting the legend of a monster in Iceland, and Beatrice goes to find him, instead stumbling into the monster itself, who is merely named Monster in this movie. She ends up bringing him back to New York City, and then at the end, they return to Iceland, where the monster dies? Question mark? In many ways, this movie is a dark comedy, especially with the over-the-top acting, the jokes that may or may not be intentional, and the monster's dark sarcasm. It's also not overtly a romance. Even darker, the monster's hope is to die, and he's tried multiple times to kill himself, but his body is too tough to be hurt. And in the end, a doctor builds a machine that is supposed to be able to kill him. The last scene we see is Beatrice kissing the monster, and then showing from his perspective as her face fades to darkness. So did he die? I assume so, but that's pretty depressing. Still, I went into this movie with no expectations, and it was much more interesting than I thought it would be. And totally a unique adaptation of Beauty and the Beast, even with the sad ending. Number 9, Belle and Rumpelstiltskin from Once Upon a Time. This is the one and only mention on this list, which is a story within a story. Once Upon a Time is a US TV show which ran from 2011 to 2018. I personally watched the first 3 seasons before I thought the series went downhill, but I still really love this series. Half modern, half fairy tale, it deals with a lot of fairy tales within stories. One of the main villains / anti-heroes of the show is Rumpelstiltskin. And in this show, there is a Beauty and the Beast retelling between him and Belle. I believe the episode which demonstrates their story as closest to Beauty and the Beast is called Skin Deep, and it's in season 1. It's a typical story. Belle goes to work for Rumple and they fall in love. I do know later in the series they eventually grow old and Belle dies in later seasons, but I didn't watch it, so I don't know all the details. Number 8, Beastly. This is a modernized retelling of Beauty and the Beast from the perspective of the Beast, released in 2011. I read the book Beastly by Alex Flynn, which inspired this movie adaptation, and it is quite good, so I recommend it if you're curious to see the book version, even though the book and the movie are quite different. In this adaptation, Kyle King's son, get it? What a great pun. Kyle is a spoiled rich kid who has everything he wants until he makes fun of the social outcast Kendra, played by the amazing Mary-Kate Olsen. She turns out to be literally a witch and curses him to be ugly until someone can love him. Honestly, he doesn't even look that bad as a beast, but whatever. He starts liking Lindy, who went to his school, and he eventually rescues her from drug dealers her father owes, and she stays with him for a while until, of course, they fall in love. Besides the setting being modern and from Kyle's perspective, it's an average adaptation. Still enjoyable, but a little sappy. Number 7, Belle. In Japanese, it's called Ryo to Sabakasu no Hime, which literally means the dragon and the freckled princess. This is a 2021 Japanese film and possibly the most unique adaptation I've ever seen, as it balances a magical world with a modern world. It follows Suzu, this Japanese teen still dealing with the drowning of her mother years before. Her mother and her used to love singing together and playing music, but since her mother's death, she has been unable to sing. Then she learns of this virtual world, which is kind of like a fancy VR world. She generates a character for herself using the name Belle, since her name Suzu means bell, as in the bell you ring. She begins singing in the virtual world and finds her voice is back. Moreover, she becomes famous in the virtual world for her singing voice. Also in the virtual world, she encounters a character known as the Beast, who is renowned at fighting, and everyone is determined to find out who he is in the real world, as well as finding his castle in the virtual world. Belle sets out to find him as well and grows to care for him even if he's covered by scars. As it turns out in the end, the Beast is actually only 14, a boy who endures daily beatings by his father, who is abusive to both him and his younger brother. Suzu in the end finds him and protects him and is able to sing in real life, meaning this Beauty and the Beast has no romance, and they simply grow to care for each other, even though the little boy at the ending does say "I love you" to her. Basically, this movie is only a loose retelling of Beauty and the Beast, which is why it is this low on the list, even though this movie is exceptional, and I highly recommend it as the visuals are stunning. Number 6, Beauty and the Beast. Fairytale Theater was this show in the 80s hosted by Shelley Duvall. Yes, the same Shelley Duvall from the amazing adaptation of The Shining. Each episode was a different fairy tale, and I think part of the reason this is so high on the list is because I have great nostalgia for this series. My mom used to go to the library and pick up VHS tapes, yes, I'm old, of these fairy tales, and I would watch them over and over again, and one of my favorites was Beauty and the Beast. I also love the Cinderella one. This version of Beauty and the Beast also stars Susan Sheridan. As a child, I was terrified of this version. Now I don't really get why I was scared, but it's got beautiful visuals, dark brocades, simplistic, and the costumes are breathtaking. Number 5, Beauty and the Beast. This Czechoslovakian film from 1978 is possibly the darkest adaptation, which is also true to the original fairy tale. Also, the Beast is so unique in this one, looking more like a bird than the typical beast look. Set in a world which might be the Regency era, it follows Julie, who goes to take her father's place living with the Beast, called Netvar. Unlike in the original, Netvar has no hope to keep her alive and plans on killing her, only keeping her alive when he sees how beautiful she is. Also, he forbids her to look on him, though they have long conversations throughout the movie. It's very much a dark romance, dark and brooding. The setting and costumes are exquisite, and I find myself wishing more people knew about this version. Number 4, Beauty and the Beast. Finally, we get to some that most people have either watched or at least heard of. This is the 2017 live adaptation of Beauty and the Beast starring Emma Watson and Dan Stevens. I know there are a lot of conflicted opinions about this show, and I definitely have a lot of opinions about it as well. For example, Belle's famous dress, saying that there's a lot to appreciate in this film. I'm so grateful they kept the music and even added a few new songs, considering so many of the live action adaptations of Disney classics don't keep the music. I'm looking at you, Mulan 2020. Also, Dan Stevens makes a great Beast. I also appreciate how big the budget was for this film because so many fairy tale movies aren't grand like this one. It also features an all-star cast, including Luke Evans, who was horrible as Gaston, but I love him still, Emma Thompson, Audra McDonald. I could listen to her singing voice forever. So while the film is by far not a perfect adaptation of the Beauty and the Beast, it's still a pretty good movie. Number 3, La Belle et la Beast. This is perhaps the most famous old Beauty and the Beast adaptation. Made in France in 1946, it is a classic in French cinema with beautiful costuming and a pretty faithful adaptation of Beauty and the Beast. This is also the first adaptation I could find Beauty and the Beast. If there are earlier adaptations, such as during the silent era, I couldn't find them. It's quite a stylized piece as well, with dramatic shots and experimental framing of scenes. It's also available to watch on YouTube, but it doesn't have any English subtitles. Number 2, Beauty and the Beast. You're probably asking yourself, wait, why is this number 2? Why isn't this number 1? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. What need I say for this film? It is the reason most people learn about the fairy tale of Beauty and the Beast. It is so classic, released during the Disney Renaissance in 1991. The art is beautiful, the music is moving, and the story is endearing. It introduced the world to Gaston, possibly the greatest Disney villain. I'm assuming most people have seen this movie, and if not, what are you doing with your life? It's great. Besides, Angela Lansbury plays Mrs. Potts, and when Jessica Fletcher is on the case, you know it's going to be a good movie. Number 1. Beauty and the Beast. Released in French in 1914, I believe this is the best Beauty and the Beast adaptation, and certainly the most beautiful. Just visually, every scene is absolutely breathtaking, from the castle to the costumes to the amazing animals and graphics. I so badly want Belle's dresses, and the Beast is incredibly creative. In this one, the Beast was cursed because he killed a deer who turned out to be the woman he loved. So the Beast is a pretty bad guy in the beginning, and really changes by the end. I love Belle and the Beast's interaction, and it also includes Belle's dreams from the original. This was the movie I was hoping the 2017 Disney live adaptation would be, with breathtaking costumes and scenery straight out of, well, a fairy tale. So in conclusion, I love how varied these adaptations are. If you made it this far into the video, what fairy tale or classic novel do you think I should rank next time? Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you would like to see more videos like this, like, subscribe, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I currently post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. In theory, I would love to put out one of these videos every single week, but it's probably going to be more like once a month or twice a month at the most, though I do want to do more scripted, detailed videos like this in the future. But for now, I will see you all in the next video. Have a great week. Bye!